This is the case of Jessica Holloway, a kind-hearted nurse who went on a simple first date and never came home. Within days, her disappearance gripped the entire nation, and when the truth finally surfaced, it revealed a calculated predator hiding in plain sight. His name? Elliot Mercer, a quiet man with no past, no real name, and a secret so chilling it changed the way we see online dating forever. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a real-life story that chills you to the bone. Your support helps us keep telling these dark, important cases with the care and depth they deserve. Stay active, stay alert, and now, let's dive into one of the most haunting true crime stories you'll ever hear. Jessica Holloway was the kind of woman people remembered. She had that soft, natural charm that made strangers trust her and friends admire her. She worked as a nurse at a small regional hospital in Oregon, loved to hike, took care of her golden retriever named Max, and always called her mother on Sundays. She wasn't famous or flashy. She wasn't chasing attention. She simply lived a quiet, kind life. To those who knew her, Jessica represented the best kind of person: genuine, caring, and full of quiet strength. In early March, Jessica had started using a dating app more regularly. Her last relationship ended nearly 2 years ago, and after months of encouragement from friends, she decided to try again. She wasn't the type to rush into things. She took her time, filtered through conversations, and paid attention to detail. So when she started chatting with someone named Daniel Carter, she did her due diligence. His profile was well written, respectful, and matched her interests: hiking, wine tasting, even volunteer work. He seemed calm and grounded. Their conversations felt easy, thoughtful. She felt safe. On a rainy Thursday evening, she posted a photo on Instagram of herself in a dark green coat, hair gently curled, makeup subtle. The caption was short: "Let's see where this goes." It wasn't just about the date, it was a step forward for someone who'd been so focused on helping others. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to choose herself. She told her best friend where she was going and promised to text afterward. She never did. The next morning, her absence was immediately noticed. At the hospital, she failed to show up for her shift, something entirely out of character. Co-workers called her phone, which went straight to voicemail. Her mother texted, no response. By noon, her family had contacted the police. Within a few hours, the Instagram post from the night before became more than a photo. It became a timestamp, a lead, a last known sign of Jessica alive. Authorities quickly determined she had gone to a wine bar in downtown Portland. Surveillance footage confirmed her arrival. She sat alone for almost 20 minutes before a man joined her. The two talked briefly, then left together. Outside the bar, they were seen walking to a white SUV. That was the last time Jessica was seen. Her phone location went dark shortly afterward. Police released a missing person alert the same evening, but by then, Jessica Holloway had already disappeared without a trace, and the clock had started ticking on one of the most haunting investigations the country would ever witness. The man who met Jessica that night introduced himself as Daniel Carter. To anyone viewing his dating profile, he appeared ideal: educated, respectful, well-traveled, and modest. He claimed to work in the tech industry, said he had recently moved to Oregon from Denver, and described himself as someone who preferred nature over nightlife. His photos showed him hiking, sipping coffee in tucked-away cafes, reading books in sunlit corners. There were no red flags, no obvious warnings. Jessica's friends, after the fact, admitted he seemed like a good guy. Too good, maybe, but not. Fake.as investigators began digging into Daniel Carter's identity. They quickly ran into a problem. The name didn't exist. Not legally. Not in any employment databases, DMV records, or state ID systems. The profile was verified on the dating app, but even that was traced to a burner phone number and an encrypted email address created only weeks before. The man Jessica had trusted enough to meet was a complete fabrication. Using the security footage from the wine bar, detectives extracted stills of the man's clothing, build, and general appearance. He wore a black coat, dark jeans, and a cap that shadowed much of his face. His posture was relaxed. He didn't seem rushed or nervous. He looked like someone who belonged anywhere. The vehicle he and Jessica got into was a white SUV with temporary tags, which were traced back to a used car lot in eastern Washington. That lead went cold fast. The vehicle had been paid for in cash, with no photo ID required. When the SUV was discovered 2 days later, abandoned near a dense patch of forest about 50 miles outside the city, forensic investigators combed it thoroughly. The interior was meticulously cleaned, but not perfectly. Traces of industrial-strength bleach were found along the seats and floorboards. In the back, lodged deep in the fabric, they found a single strand of long blonde hair and a torn fragment of fabric, later confirmed to be part of the scarf Jessica was wearing. The vehicle had been wiped of fingerprints and DNA. No blood, no personal belongings, just a hollow, silent shell of a car that had already served its purpose, with no phone pings, no credit card trails, and no usable photo of the man's face. Police were left with almost nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The man who wasn't real had managed to leave behind only confusion, a fake name, and growing dread that Jessica had walked into something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. 2 weeks after Jessica Holloway vanished, the search took a heartbreaking turn. It was a chilly Sunday morning when 2 hikers veered off a marked trail in Cascade National Park, looking for a quiet place to rest. What they found instead would change the course of the case entirely. Near the edge of a wooded ravine, beneath a pile of rocks and forest debris, they discovered what looked like a discarded sleeping bag. But the moment they got closer, they knew it was something else. A body had been carefully wrapped, hidden, just enough to avoid discovery but not deeply buried. Law enforcement quickly secured the area. The body inside the sleeping bag was confirmed to be female. She was fully clothed, bound, and wrapped with unnerving precision. The scene was undisturbed, almost sterile. It was clear the killer hadn't acted in a rush. There were no animal marks, no signs of carelessness. It was as if she had been placed, not dumped, as part of a grim ritual. Forensic teams moved slowly, collecting every piece of evidence with caution. Not far from the body, investigators found a zip tie, a pair of gloves, and a small travel-sized bottle of bleach partially buried beneath wet leaves. It didn't take long to confirm the identity: Jessica Holloway. The community's worst fears were realized. The woman who had only gone on a date was now at the center of a homicide case. The autopsy report revealed she had died from manual strangulation. There were no broken bones, but her wrists showed signs of restraint. Underneath her fingernails, technicians found what appeared to be a fragment of gold paint, an odd detail that didn't belong in a forest. It was a tiny clue, but the forensic team flagged it as potentially significant. Jessica's body was preserved unusually well given the conditions. The way she had been wrapped kept her protected from weather and wildlife. This added another disturbing layer to the case. The killer had not only taken time to choose the location, but had also ensured that her body would be kept intact. He hadn't simply wanted her gone, he wanted her preserved. Public reaction was swift and emotional. Candlelight vigils were held across her town, and national news picked up the story. What began as a local missing persons case had turned into a nightmare that struck fear into hearts across the country. Police now had a body, a cause of death, and one bizarre piece of physical evidence, a golden flake, hinting that whoever killed Jessica had a habit of detail, precision, and a need to control. Even after death, the mystery deepened, and the manhunt intensified. As the investigation deepened, Jessica Holloway's case began to unravel something much larger than anyone expected. Detectives widened their scope, pulling in records from surrounding states and revisiting older cases involving missing women who vanished under similar circumstances. It wasn't long before patterns emerged. The similarities were striking: young women, mostly in their 20s or early 30s, all meeting men through dating apps, all last seen alive with someone who used a different version of the name Daniel. In every instance, the man seemed polite, intelligent, and trustworthy, but behind every fake profile was the same void: no traceable history, no real identity, and no one who actually existed. The one thread investigators couldn't ignore was the strange flake of gold paint found beneath Jessica's fingernail. When forensic specialists identified it as a high-grade restoration paint used in antique furniture, detectives followed that lead with renewed urgency. They canvassed antique shops across multiple states, asking about recent transactions involving gold-painted pieces. After weeks of silence, a breakthrough came from a small shop in Idaho. The owner remembered a man who had brought in an intricately restored chair with flecks of gold trim. He had worn gloves the entire time, paid in cash, and declined to give a name. Surveillance footage captured his face clearly for the first time. That face belonged to Elliot Mercer. He wasn't in any criminal database, but the name led police to a rural property registered in his name outside Boise. Mercer, 35, had no known family, no active employment, and no social media footprint. But he did have a past. He once worked as a freelance art restorer before vanishing from public life years earlier. His neighbors described him as quiet, polite, and reclusive. He rarely spoke, mostly kept to himself, and only ventured into town to buy groceries or supplies. There was nothing outwardly suspicious about him. When authorities searched his cabin, the true nature of Mercer's world was exposed. Inside, every room had been converted into a disturbing shrine. Photos of women, some identified as Jessica, Laura Grayson, and other known missing persons, were arranged like art pieces. Mannequins were replicas of clothing the victims had last been seen in. Locks of hair, pieces of jewelry, even personal items like lip balm and scarves were stored in labeled drawers. His workshop in the basement held jars of paint, brushes, rope, and cleaning agents, all neatly organized. The journals they found were even more unsettling. Mercer wrote obsessively about freezing beauty in time, about preserving moments before they were lost to decay. To him, this wasn't murder. It was collection, control. His crimes were not acts of rage, but of ritual. In his mind, he wasn't erasing lives, he was preserving them exactly as he believed they should remain: silent, perfect, and as forever. The arrest of Elliot Mercer stunned the nation. The calm, polite man taken into custody looked nothing like the monster the public had imagined. He offered no resistance, no emotion. As the officers led him away, neighbors stood in disbelief. To them, he was just a quiet man who kept to himself, who visited the local library, who bought groceries like anyone else. No one suspected that inside his isolated cabin, a secret world had been carefully constructed, a world that would shock even the most seasoned investigators. Inside Mercer's home, the walls were covered in photographs of women. Some were confirmed victims, others were still unidentified. They weren't candid snapshots, they were staged. Some appeared to be taken with the hidden camera during dates, while others were photographs of items, scarves, shoes, jewelry laid out like exhibits. His basement contained a chilling workshop. Mannequins dressed in outfits identical to those worn by the victims. Human hair wigs carefully styled. Fragments of the same scarf Jessica had been wearing the night she disappeared, reproduced in different fabrics, different patterns, as if he had been trying to recreate the perfect version of that one moment. Alongside these displays were journals, hundreds of handwritten pages. In them, Mercer described his thoughts in obsessive detail. He wrote about capturing fleeting beauty, about freezing perfection before it fades, and about women as muses who shine brightest just before they disappear. His words revealed not anger or hatred, but a twisted reverence. He wasn't driven by violence. He was driven by control. He wanted to preserve what he believed was beautiful, forever, but only on his terms, in silence, where no one else could touch it. Mercer was charged with 3 confirmed murders, including Jessica's. Investigators believe he may be responsible for at least 7 other disappearances across 4 states. Because he left so few traces and used so many fake identities, the full extent of his crimes may never be known. At trial, he showed no emotion. He refused to speak in his own defense, and was sentenced to life without parole. Jessica's story led to national changes. Dating platforms overhauled their verification processes, implemented stricter screening for fake profiles, and launched public awareness campaigns about dating safety. Her family established a foundation in her name, focused on protecting women from online predators and supporting families of the missing. Her funeral became a national moment of grief, not just for who she was, but for what she represented. Every woman who trusted the wrong person, every family that never got answers. Years later, people still visit the forest trail where her body was found. Flowers are placed at the site. Her story has become a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil often wears a kind face, and that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who move quietly, planning everything, leaving nothing behind except heartbreak, horror, and silence.